let's talk now about explore. So we've looked at the guidelines we're going to set. We've looked at empathy, how we're going to create that. Now we need to know the truth. And we're going to do several exercises around what is the truth. But God has given man the eye of investigation by which he may see and recognize truth. Each human creature has individual endowment, power, and responsibility in the creative plan of God. Now, at lunchtime, Greg and I were talking about our motion picture in our head that takes place. And what research shows recently is that people don't remember everything. People are more like slideshows than they are like videotape. They remember certain pictures at certain points, and then when they need to, their mind goes back and connects those points together. So rather than retaining everything that you see in here, you retain certain clips of it. So the challenge in truth is, what are the clips that we're retaining? But we understand as Baha'is the importance of truth to whatever extent we're able to explore that. In most fields of the work I do in mediation, people would say truth is relative and truth doesn't matter. Yeah, literally, it doesn't matter. We're just trying to help people resolve an issue, so we're not concerned with truth. Baha'is, we're able to see and recognize truth, and that's one of the purposes of consultation, is truth and unity. I mentioned earlier about kindness and truth. There is always a way to be honest without being brutal. Okay? But let's start to bring together kindness and honesty and see what it looks like if we combine those two together.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
Okay, so it's not about the nail. Okay? Again, getting back to what did he say that allowed her to move on, that allowed her to recognize?
It's hard.
That must be really hard. That's a great empathetic response. And once she felt heard, she wasn't quite ready to go on totally, but then she was opening up too. Okay? I just love it because it's a great demonstration that I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. And as soon as you have that response, and we laugh at it, but I think there's a truth to it too in some ways. Let's take a look at learning styles and brain function. Okay? How does our brain work? They say the brain is a wonderful thing and starts working the moment you get up in the morning and doesn't stop till you arrive at work, right? But we do this because this tells us the kind of questions we need to ask. And questions is what drive change. Okay? We're going to see that more actually when we talk about brainstorming. So I begin with a little bit of questions here. Now, we talk about communication, and we talk about the words we use. This is a fill-in your sheets. The tone of our voice and our body language. Okay? So what percent of our communication are the words that we use? What do you think?
10.
We got 10 back here. Who'll give me lower than 10? Lower than 10, lower than 10. Going once, going twice? 7. 7's a winner. Okay? 7. What do we have for... We just talked about this last week, didn't you remember? Tone of our voice. What's the tone of our voice for communication? 60? Big.
80.
Less. Lower. Lower, 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 lower.
60. 20.
38. So what about body language? And the rest is 55. So but I tell folks, if we send an email, what percent are we using? 0. Yeah, okay. We're using 7%. If we talk to somebody on the telephone, what percent are we using? 45%. If we see someone across the room but can't hear them, what percent are we using? 55. Again, so we're back to the point, remember before, stop and think. In empathy, right, the first stage was through the non-verbal and body language. Okay? Same thing, this is communication, reinforcing that. What I tell folks is this shows how we hear through our eyes. Okay? Most communication takes place visually. And this reinforces the visual aspects of communication. This 33% of us learn by seeing and imagining, 24% by listening and verbalizing, 14% by, do we have this? Oh, we have this in there, okay. 14% by doing manipulating, 29% we have more than one modality. The key here is, and I want you to think about consultation the way it's normally practiced at feast, from a Baha'i perspective as well as the outside world. In feast, how often do we have a whiteboard or a flip chart? We never do. But most people are visual learners. This is how you track, this is how you focus. This is an example of a guideline. We will have one guideline might be at all of our feasts and LSA meetings, we will have a way to visually track our consultation. Meaning, flip chart, whiteboard, PowerPoint, whatever people can see. That's an example of a guideline that will aid our consultation. So, I give some ideas here. Visually, we can use flip charts, maps, drawings, pictures. One picture is worth 1,000 words. Okay? Auditorily, music, song, clear acoustics. This is a pretty good room because of the carpeting for being able to hear. Writing, drawing, and movement. If you have a difficult issue to discuss, have everybody get up and walk around and sit back down. It'll change the whole conversation. Okay? We need to think outside 9 people sitting around a table with their hands folded, because that is the lowest common denominator of consultation. People can express themselves, and we'll show you this in many different ways. Okay, remember that our left brain likes structure and sequence, our right brain likes random patterns, visual, spatial, is emotional, and looks at the big picture. Most people spend most of their time in their left brain. It tracks what's going on for us. It's our daily planner. We only move into our right brain if we're forced to. Okay? And when we're forced to do that when we're presented with situations that we cannot otherwise understand or resolve. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I don't know what we're going to do. Hopefully at that point, people are starting to shift into their right brain because they need a more creative solution. Okay, but we'll talk about forcing that shift. Pushing people over the cliff. Long-term memory. How do we remember things? 2 ways. What are they? In your life, what are the 2 ways you remember things? Emotion and
Experience.
Repetition. When you do things over and over, your brain creates a template. Or remember what I said earlier, with every experience you attach an emotion to it. So the emotion becomes the memory in many ways. You remember more about how you felt about it than what actually happened. Learning styles, okay. Now, we're all going to get up here and we're going to do an activity around how we learn. And you're going to explain your style to the rest of the class in groups. So to do that, the first thing we need to do, now, you can leave everything on your chairs for right now and come back to it in just a second, or you can carry some things with you, but you'll be moving to a different area of the room when we're done. So, need everybody to form a line just down the middle of the room in some way. So stand up. Okay, I want you to listen to what I described, and you're going to move to one end of the room or the other. Okay, and then we're going to move a second time. Now, I want you to understand that as human beings, we all have the ability to use all of those learning styles. We all can use our eyes, our ears, and touch to learn. We all can learn through sensing, feeling, and thinking. We all can learn in all different aspects. I want you to just move to the area that feels good for you, that resonates with you in some way. The first thing we're going to do is move from the front to the back of the room. The front, then don't move just yet, but the front of the room are people that are sensing and feeling. And sensing, feeling people immerse themselves in the concrete reality and perceive through your senses. Now, Abdu'l Baha told us what our senses are. Our physical senses are sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, right? Those are the ways, the physical ways. And thinking will be back here, and that people who think through the experience and analyze what is happening and make their first appraisal in a logical approach based on their experience rather than a sensory approach. Now, the other thing I will say is every place you're standing is the right place to stand. And it's important that we recognize the diversity by the different places where people stand. So, there's no wrong place to stand. Move to wherever you feel most comfortable. Sensing, feeling in the front of the room, thinking in the back of the room. Now, again, this is just a very quick survey, I guess you could say. When you take the test, this is out of format teaching learning styles. When you go through and take the test, you're going to answer 100 questions and you're going to be, you could be here or you could be over there, many different places. But this is just a rough cut, show you where the different learning styles are, because these learning styles generate questions that you need to ask. And when you ask questions from all four perspectives, then you touch everybody in the room. Okay? So, we're going to split you in the other way now. And, okay, so looking up at the screen, this is the next split. Stay where you are, front to back, and you're going to go side to side. Reflective, active experimentation. If you jump right in and try it, you're an active learner. Okay? If you see something and you just want to do it, you're active. You're over here. And the example I give is if you get a computer and you just open it up and start playing with it. And on this side, if you stand back and watch, you're reflective. Okay, now, what I'm going to ask, and I'm just going to ask, it doesn't, for purposes of the class, we want to have you the opportunity to participate as much as you can. So I'm going to ask a few people that might feel inclined to do so to move to the other side here, if you feel you can, if you'd like to. Okay. A couple more this way. If you don't have to, but it's just if you could lean that way a little bit. No? Okay. Because the larger the group, the less chance you can participate. Same over here. A few people, one or two people over this way. They look like that. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let me tell you about your group. Here's where I get to feel like an astrologist, right? You'll be a total dark stranger. Okay. What we have is this 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 1 over here, right? You guys over here. 2, 3, and 4. 1. People standing here need a reason to do something. Their question is why they like connecting with people. Okay? If you're back over here, you may feel more comfortable as a teacher or a student in a classroom. Your question is what? You want to understand the information around things. Okay? Over here, you are more of the engineers. application. How does this work? Understanding the ways in which the world, something functions. And over here is the imagination. You want to know if. What if we tried something new? So the way it works in consultation, typically, you have to ask all 4 questions. It's vital. If you're only asking what, you're making just a rational decision without any really further thought. Over here, you're asking yourself, well, why is this important? Why are we doing this? What's the reason behind this? What do we need to do? Over here, you're saying, well, what do we need to know? What will help us make a better decision? The informational aspects of things. Over here, well, how does this work? How is this working now? More like the engineering perspective. And over here is the creative perspective. What if we tried something different? Now, the challenge we have in consultation, and we'll talk about this as we look at 6 thinking hats. If you're asking all 4 questions at the same time, it's chaos. If somebody asks, well, why is this important? What if we tried this? Well, how does this work? Well, we need more information, right? So one of the keys here is understand each of these perspectives and devote the time. Now, I don't want to suggest that you have to go in this order, but it is an interesting order when you stop and think about it. And if we begin understanding why is this important, you have commitment. Maybe it's not important. Well, it's really not important. We don't need to do anything. Maybe you stop there. Or this is absolutely vital. This is the guidance we're given. This is why it's important. Now, those of you in Ruhi is very interesting because Ruhi mentions 3 of these 4 learning styles at the very beginning. Remember? It talks about examination, application, and implication, but it doesn't mention why is this important. And I think from a learning style perspective, Baha'is, we understand why it's important, but it's an unspoken aspect of Ruhi, but it's important to bring about the unity of mankind. But it doesn't say so in as many words. Stop and think about it. So, these are the 4 learning styles. What I want you to do, and I understand that you may have been persuaded to take on a learning style that might not necessarily be your own, but I also understand you all have the capability to learn and grow from one another and to consider the perspective of that learning style. What I want you to do is explain to the rest of the group why your learning style is the best. I want you to come up with a motto for your learning style and a song that best portrays your learning style that will be performed by your entire group. Dancing is optional, but highly encouraged. I want to reflect for a second on the progress that we're making as we talk about these different steps. When we talk about empathy, we're talking about a diversity of feeling. People feel in different ways. When we talk about exploring the truth, we're talking about diversity again. People learn in different ways. Okay? We're going to talk about expand and brainstorming. We're talking about creating different opportunities. So we've got 3 sections that really focus on diversity in those ways. When we talk about envision, we're going to talk about defining the issue in a single way. And when we talk about elucidate, we're going to talk about what are the spiritual principles we all agree on, the unity of the principles. And we talk about evaluate, talk about unity around the decision. So it's kind of a combination of different stages around unity and diversity, but this is recognizing this is one form of diversity, recognizing people's different ways of learning. This particular model is based on about 10 different researchers going back 100 years and has been used in many different cultures around the world too. So it has some type of cultural background to it too, the authenticity. But let's go around and hear from the different groups with their benefits of the learning style, their motto, and their song. So, why?
We are the wise, wise.
The wise ones seek knowledge and investigate truth. Seeking wise focuses effort, saves time, and gives an overview and connection with the issue.
We are the wise ones.
We are the wise ones.
We are the wise ones.
I am here. I know no other
We are the
place
the wise ones.
to face my soul.
The wise ones.
I stand
We are
with
the
you,
wise ones.
and fear I smother
The wise ones.
all that's life and love and mine.
Wise ones.
Will I?
We are the wise.
Will you lead?
We are the wise.
Can
The wise ones.
I follow?
We are the wise.
Is it needful that I swallow pride to make my spirit hollow? I do not answer, only question. Why do I still expect perfection or dare to care what grim complexion steers my wandering spirit home?
We are the wise ones.
We are the wise.
I don't even know. I have no idea what to say. So let's go ahead and hear from our. No, you're the ones, the what ones.
Who are the wise ones? Sarah?
Walk this way?
Sir, our motto is, what the? And then on a more serious note, oh God, let me see things as they really are from the fifth. So we're the ones who are going to say, tell me more, tell me more. We want to sort out the truth, distinguish from falsehood and error, and the more facts, the better, and in being able to understand and make a decision. So that's why what's are important.
Oh God, let me see things as they really are.
Tell me more, tell me more.
Just the facts, man. Just the facts.
Tell me more, tell me more.
And as much of the truth.
Tell me more, tell me more.
Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
I mean, what the?
Yeah, I can see this as a performance art group. So, okay, let's hear from the Hows.
I'll start it. We're the house. Our motto is hands-on workers. Hands-on!
Hands
Workers. Got that? Okay, our points. Let's talk. More action. 2, we get it done. Learn by doing. You propose, we dispose. No delay, we're on the way. 1, 2, 3. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, how we do it. Glory, glory, how we do it. We can get it done. Hands-on workers are who we are. Hands-on workers are who we are. Hands-on workers are who we are. We can get it done.
Okay, imagination, folks. You have a lot lots to live up to here. I see how we do it. Final round, the judges are watching.
You're our leader.
Motto: creativity works because imagination is the beginning of everything.
We got to see the thing.
Okay.
Tell them why we're good.
Oh,
Great.
That's right. Here, tell them why we're so
Right.
Because we're divinely inspired, we are visionaries, we creatively encourage outward thinking, thinking outside the box. We blaze the trail, and we learn as we go.
Right. Okay. Lead the way.
1, 2, 3, 4. We are creative thinkers. We are the trailblazers. We are the visionaries. We make it happen.
And you know, when we talk about emotion and memory, you had a lot of fun doing this. Many people tell me, well, I don't remember what you taught in class, but I remember the song that we wrote. Okay? But that's partly, that's a very good thing, because the song has knowledge in it, it has wisdom in it. So, these are the different perspectives for, this is one way of looking at it. Now again, you know, everything that we're doing, I don't mean to suggest that the writings are only allowed for this one way. There may be other things to tease out. If I were to bring the science into consultation, this is one of the things based on my experience I would bring in. Is there a question you had, Lee?
Yes, I just kind of like let you know that I was waiting.
Sure.
I find that I kind of like, I'm partly in two camps. Is that?
Oh, well, let me tell you, each of you, everyone here should be able to ask a question from every one of these perspectives. Every one of you should be able to be in every one of these perspectives. We have free will. We can become, you know, empathy allows us to be aware of others. And this type of knowledge allows us to then walk in their shoes, essentially. Okay, so you're absolutely right. Yeah. I don't want you to feel I put you in a box here at all. Because all of us visit all four of these quadrants all the time. But most people, generally speaking, have kind of a default quadrant that they may feel more comfortable with. And that's kind of where they go back to. But the strongest consultation comes when we're hearing all learning styles. Now, what they say, generally speaking, is in this half of the room, this is very general, you learn in the classroom, this half of the room learns on the street. You learn through life experience. Okay? That's fine, but I mean, allow for different structures. Both of those are fine. The strongest people are the people that can bridge these different learning styles. You know, I mean, if you think of someone like Steve Jobs, well, he was able to have a very active imagination over here combined with a strong ability to understand what it was, to give it a purpose and a vision, and to really understand how it should work. I mean, the strongest people, the best folks, are the ones that, I say the best folks, but people that are the true leaders, I think, can recognize all four. And I think in consultation, we have to recognize all four. If we only focus on one, we have a very narrow consultation. Okay? I love that song. That was great. We'll have DVDs available for this. Or if you pay us enough, we can burn it too. What I want to do now is we're going to consider the different perspectives that you are in. I'm going to ask you to kind of hold on to those for a minute. And I'm going to ask you to think about what are the questions you might ask related to those perspectives. So I'm going to go and let's take a look at the importance of questions in the faith. And I love this quote in the Bayat, "It had been forbidden for you to ask us questions. The Lord hath now relieved you of this prohibition that you may ask, that you may be free to ask what you need to ask, but not such idle questions as men of former times were wont to dwell." So, we understand how vital questions are in faith. I want you to talk about, in your group, from your perspective, in each of your different groups, what does a good question do? Okay, so from a what perspective, from a how, from a what if, what is the role of a good question in your particular perspective? And then we're going to practice asking a few questions from those different perspectives. So just talk about that for a second in your groups, and then we'll come back and talk about that as a whole group. I think we need to take a look in promoting better questions in consultation. And one way we do that is think about the questions you ask. Think about the questions that are out there. And think about the questions from these different perspectives. Think about the questions, why is this important? What do we know? How does this work? What else could we do? What does a good question do from each of those perspectives? Okay? Because then we're going to have an exercise about asking questions. I'll give you a very simple situation. What questions would you ask? What?
A good what question stimulates the faculty of the soul, activates memory and concentration. It's an invitation, a spiritual invitation to spiritual guidance. Identifies and specifies the desired knowledge, focusing. Also can broaden the discussion, inviting other factors not previously considered, giving a broader perspective. It can create a framework for further investigation, and it's an active step towards solution. Also informs the how department.
The how department. We'll find out about
You have something you want to add to this question? We said that a good how question prompts a new action, corrects, refines, and defines that action.
Corrects, define,
and refines.
Okay.
A good question is one that, if you had the answer, would lead to actions and to progress.
Lead to action and
progress.
Progress, okay. Okay. I mean, you could say a good question is always immunity to truth, or, those types of things. Good. Okay. Good question for the imagination. What is that?
Good question extends information from the unknown to the known. It brings out the imagination. It envisions the path to the goal, opens the door to possibilities, and encourages participation without fear of making mistakes.
Okay. Okay.
We rock.
Yes. Okay.
We have our answer.
You have your answers now.
Yes.
Okay.
Our answer is what they said. I think it provides an overview of the situation from the respondent's perspective. And there was one other thing, an umbrella response. But it also helps the respondent to involve their emotions in the response.
Okay.
Because it's their personal why.
Okay, their personal why. Okay. Okay. So you get an idea in thinking about asking questions, how people learn, the types of questions those can generate, broadening the kinds of questions you might ask in thinking about that. So we're going to talk about one other pattern related to questions, but now we're going to move into a slightly different group that's going to be a more diverse group, assuming, now again, I understand no one perfectly represents any particular group in that way, but if I was doing something, would I want all imaginative people there?
No.
Would I want all wise? I want a mixture. Now the challenge is the mixtures create conflict.
Yes.
Okay, quite seriously, because you're not seeing it my way. Let me explain what I'm talking about. So you need to have the diversity with a willingness to listen, to be open to what others are saying. So we're going to go and mix the groups into diverse groups now based on questions and ask you to look at particular scenarios and figure out what questions would you ask. what I wanted to do, if you take a look at page 11, number you mentioned, I haven't talked about that. I wanted to connect the dots a little bit here. Page 11 talks about 4 different negotiation styles. And I include that in there because those negotiation styles are essentially learning styles. So we see the same types of understanding of styles from different perspectives, the similar construct. So the number 1 on page 11 is a factual style. Well, that's the what people. The number 2 people is an intuitive style. That's the what if people. The number 3 analytical style, that's a how. That's our how folks. And number 4 is a normative style. That's the people that build relationships in number 1. We want to know the reasons why. So I included that in here. You might want to make a note if you want to write that down. 2, 4, 3, 1. But those are learning styles in negotiation and how people then work together. This is on page 11. Page 11, and think of it as 2, 4, 3, 1. In that way. Okay? Compared to the teaching and learning styles. Okay, now, let's take a look at asking better questions. And we just talked about what is a good question to do. This is one way I teach people how to think about questions. And questions go from open to closed and from positional to neutral. Okay, a positional closed question is a question a lawyer always asks in a courtroom on TV, right? Were you at this location at this time? Right? The position is you did something wrong and they want you to answer yes or no, and it's a 4. That question gives you the least information. And that is the least valuable question because there's nothing more you can do with it. I want you to think in terms of questions that are open and neutral. They're positive, they're future focused. And take a look at how to generate those questions. Now, we're going to give you a scenario. We want you to put together questions on it. The example, though, if you look in the middle of the page, where I have 4 questions, it says, quadrant 1 says, how can we locate the missing book? Quadrant 2 says, do you know who took his book? And that's more of a closed question. Quadrant 3 is, why did you take his book? So that's coming from the position that someone did this, want to understand more about it. And question 4 is your lawyer question, did you take his book? So you can see, we moved around 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, which question would people rather respond to? 1, 2, 3, or 4? If which question would you rather be asked? 1, 2. Yeah, 1 or 2, right? I mean, at least an open, neutral question. So we need to think about better questions. What I tell folks is begin at quadrant 1. Begin at 1 because that gives you the biggest playing field for the questions you're going to ask. Okay? So this very simple scenario I give you is we're talking about a children's class, and I'm going to give you different aspects of that scenario. I want you to, now, let me emphasize a couple of things. You don't know everything, and you will never know everything. You will never know everything you need to know to make a perfect decision. Let me be very clear about that. Okay? Up here, all you know here is a children's class, and this is slightly different than what's in your book. A children's class is experiencing challenges with behavior, attendance, and teachers. Now, here's where I mentioned appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry says to focus on what is working. Okay? Appreciative inquiry started in Central America when doctors were working there, and they found some villages were much healthier than other villages that doctors were working with. And the healthier villages were villages where the doctors built on what was working, rather than trying to repair what was wrong. Building on what's working gets everybody in a more positive frame of mind. What are we doing well? Let's make it better. Okay? Let's think about how we can improve on it. So, I want you to think about what are good, positive, open, neutral, fact-based questions that would generate the best responses. So, let me just make it simple here. Why don't you guys talk about behavior? You guys talk about attendance. And you talk about teachers. And we'll do the same thing over here. Talk about behavior, attendance, and teachers. What questions do you want to ask? And the other thing about questions is the best question can be asked to anyone. Okay? The best question can be asked to anyone. Now, let me give you one example of how I resolved a very difficult dispute with 4 questions. When I tell people, in the work I do, the only tool I have is a question. So all I can do is ask a question. In 4 questions, though, we came to a complete resolution. We had a group of about 20 people, and the issue was a barking dog in the community. And they asked me to come in, and I'd never met anybody before. We just had the chairs in a circle, so everyone sat down. And the first question was, can you share where you live in the community? Where do you live? And everyone says, well, I live here, I live there. And they all connected to each other. It's a form of empathy. They build connections to each other by sharing where they live, how long they live there, what their hopes were for the community. Then, can you please tell me about your dog? And you think about that as almost a what question? Well, I've got a black lab, or I've got a chihuahua, or I've got a Doberman Pinscher, or I've got whatever dog. Everyone shared about their dog. The third question is, what is acceptable behavior for a dog in your neighborhood? And that is almost a how question, because it looks at how do dogs interact in your community? What's acceptable behavior? The fourth question that resolved everything was, how can we work together to help a dog live according to what you feel is acceptable? When you ask a question from that perspective, everyone's working together. They're all on the same side of the table. We generated 20 different choices. Again, better questions lead to more choices. Okay? And the first 5 choices were free. We can socialize the dog, we can let the dog meet other dogs, we can let the dog meet people, we can take the dog for a walk, simple things. We can put then we can put a doggy door in, we can put radio on the porch, on down. And the last 2 were like doggy daycare and doggy value. The most expensive, right? And I said, okay, well, what should we do now? And so, we put the list in order from low cost to high cost, and the agreement was start at the low cost and work your way up until you get it solved, right? Everyone worked together in trying to solve this. Now, the real funny thing about this was I never found out who had the bad dog. I didn't even know the person that had the bad dog because I didn't set it up that way. Don't set it up as a dichotomy. Don't set it up as either or. Don't set it up as yes or no. Okay? Think in terms of how can we work together to come up with, and we're going to talk about this in the next section, especially raising that question to the level of unity. Now, we're not doing that quite right now. Right now, we're still concerned with essentially the facts from a positive perspective. Okay? But talk about the questions, again, from the perspective of behavior, attendance, and teachers, whatever area you've been given. What are the questions you would ask? Good, positive, open, neutral, fact-based questions. Okay? Go ahead and talk for a minute, and then we'll reflect on it. Now, when I say asking better questions, I say that because there is no single one best question. We can always improve on the questions that we ask. But the first way is to be aware of that. So, talk in your groups about the types of questions you would ask. When we talk about questions, this is a lifelong pursuit. And I wanted to mention, when we do this, a couple of books that I have that you're welcome to take a look at. There are many books out there on questions. Now, this is one book I love. It's called Why? And it's subtitled, What Happens When People Give Reasons and Why? And it's a fascinating book to understand more about Well, why? And this one's called QBQ, the question behind the question. Okay? But again, there's a lot out there on questions. All of the IB programming, the International Baccalaureate program for high school students, is based on asking questions. The students drive the learning through the questions they ask. Okay? Questions are how we really express our imagination. And in China, what's really interesting in China, Chinese students learn at a very early age never to ask a question in class. Because in China, when you ask a question, it makes you look bad for not knowing, and it makes the teacher look bad for not having taught you. So when I get kids in university, I teach them asking better questions, and this is brand new for them. It's really amazing, and to me, it's one of the limitations in Chinese society to the imagination. When you can't ask questions, there literally is no interest, no curiosity. Now, that's not completely true in Chinese society. Obviously, some folks go out and ask questions and are able to do some things. But it's a society based a lot upon looking to the outside world for inspiration and a lot of the innovation that happens in the world. Chinese, they're able at this stage to be able to understand and improve, but not as a primary source for innovation, which is interesting. So, let's go around and hear your questions. Now, to me, if you know about Bloom's level, there's a lot we can talk about. There's a lot in the book, too. But Bloom's level of taxonomy talks about 7 levels of knowledge. And the basic level is information, and the top level is synthesis, is creativity, is bringing things together in different ways, okay, and new ideas. So let's go around and let's just hear one question from each group to start with. And I'll just start over here because we kind of went in this order. So we're talking behavior. We're talking behavior here. So what's one question you have on behavior?
What's working? What's working in the class?
Okay.
What are the good behaviors that you see?
Okay, what are the good behaviors that we see? Now, it always sounds a little shallow when I say, well, you got to focus, you got to look at the negative. I was working with a manager and a director with a state agency, and the manager brought in a list of grievances that just went on and on. It was written in small handwriting, as you can imagine, and I looked at it and I said, we're never going to be able to resolve all of that. We just can't. So what are we going to do? Plus, the resolutions are just stupid. You can only chew gum between 10 and 10:15. You can walk to the water cooler on your break. What are you going to do? You want to promote the best in people. You've got to promote the best in people. So, attendance.
All right, so we were supposed to develop a question or two about attendance. So we thought we would ask the children, what do you like about the classes? And we'd ask the adults, how can we re-engage those who haven't come?
Okay. Now again, how would you combine those questions together? The question you could ask both the children and the adults. Think about that. Okay?
This is for teachers?
Teachers.
Okay. What are the things you love to do with your students?
For the teachers. Okay. So, again, think at a higher level. What are the things that promote the best teaching in the classroom? I almost want to place, it's in a tense that I call third person obscure. You're not really sure who you're addressing it to, but it's kind of out there. Okay, and so we're talking behavior here. Behavior.
Go ahead.
Right?
We asked, first we asked what is working well. Why do you think we are having difficulties?
Okay.
Since she answered. She said the first one that
Okay.
we did, we changed it to the second.
Well, now, don't ask why you're having difficulty. We're not going to go there. Okay. Again, I don't want to say that you're not having difficulty, but focus on what's working. I have a number of friends in conflict resolution that have totally changed their mode of operation, and that's everything you see out there now. In positive psychology, it tells us to focus on those problems. People are much more responsive. They'll work much harder. Would somebody rather work for you if you ask a question of, what are all the things that have gone wrong, or what are all the things that are going well, and how can we get those to go better?
Can we give you our other one, Dan, since
Sure.
that was the bummer?
Okay.
Then we also discussed, what if everything goes well, what would that look like in your classroom?
Okay. If
Now, is that
everything,
getting closer?
everything went well, what would that look like? Okay, let's go over here.
No, we had attendance. Knowing the causes of good attendance, how can we encourage increased attendance?
Okay. Now, to go back to the why question, again, these are questions that might help you make the best out of something that maybe you shouldn't even be doing. Remember? So the why questions, the bigger question, we're going to get to that next. The bigger question would be, well, what is important? Why should we be doing children's classes? Why should we even do that in the first place? Okay? We'll think about that. We'll think about that when we get to the next section. So, we're talking about teachers today. Spin the microphone.
Okay. Tell me what's happening in your class.
Okay. Now that's pretty neutral. It doesn't have to have, you're not saying, tell me what's gone wrong, or tell me what's gone right. You're just saying, tell me what's happening. So it's open, neutral, and fact-based. Okay? In that way. So I guess maybe to more clearly say what I've been saying, start at neutral and work your way up. Don't talk about, because as soon as you talk about something that's not working, all of a sudden there has to be blame involved. Somebody has to take responsibility. Something's gone wrong. If someone at some point decides to say, well, I've been thinking about this, I just haven't been doing a very good job at this, and I really want to improve what I'm doing, or I'm thinking that maybe they're making a career change or whatever, that's a natural part of the process. When I go in and work with organizations, many times the person that's causing, I didn't put it like that, the person that's causing the problem recognizes that they are, and either may recognize that they are and decide to step aside in whatever way that may be appropriate, or people in the organization more generally recognize what needs to be changed, and that change is just a natural evolution that needs to happen. Okay? But don't focus on what's gone wrong. Okay, next question. This is teachers again, or behavior again?
What behavior can be identified as laudable and duplicatable?
Okay, great. Okay, what's good behavior, and how can we get more of it? Okay, what can we do? Duplicatable meaning, what can other classrooms adopt? What are the best practices we have? Okay, there's a lot of best practices out there now. What is the best practice in a good classroom? Okay, and attendance.
Who's here?
Who's here and why are they here? Okay, so again, focusing on attendance. Now, if you think about, let's talk about attendance from the perspective of the other questions. Talk about attendance. Why are people coming? Quadrant 1. What do we know about those people that do come? How do they participate while they're here? What if we try different forms of improving attendance? Again, those, working around that particular quadrant. Okay, the how, what, why, where. Okay, teachers. Question?
Are there ways parents have been involved and have been helpful?
Okay, this is a question for teachers?
Yeah.
Okay. Or you can go with the third person obscure and say, in what way can parents contribute to the success of the teachers? Or how can parents contribute to promoting a vibrant children's class? Okay, focusing on what we really want to get. Attendance.
Looking at a particular area, neighborhood, what would it look like if we had 100% attendance?
Okay. What would it look like? Now, when we talk about questions, the most difficult question to ask is the one you think you know the answer to, right? If you think you know the answer, try asking a question about that. You know the answer, why am I asking the question, right? You've got to step outside of what you think you know. Okay, teachers.
Trip, what do you mean by that? If you think you know the answer. Was that in response to what she said?
Oh, no.
Oh,
No, what I'm saying is if you think you know the answer, it's very difficult to ask the question. Because you think you know the answer. You know it, right? How do you put what you know into the form of a question? You want to put it in the form of a statement. So, but you've got to step back from that and be willing to set that aside. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't grow from the knowledge that we all share with each other, but we have to be willing to explore all aspects and be willing to maybe step aside from what we think we might know at this point and consider other possibilities.
What's working well for you in the classroom?
And this is for teachers? Okay. Again, rather than say what's working well for you in the classroom, say what's working in the classroom. Why are children attending? What promotes the best behavior among students? Okay? But if we're going to explore the truth, let's understand, and again, Abdu'l-Baha tells us, right? If you've got 19 bad qualities and one good one, what do? We focus on the one good quality. The writings are full of appreciative inquiry. Focus on the best. Focus on what you want. Build on the best. Repairing the worst is never going to help you. Never going to help you. Okay? So, think about questions. Tonight I want you to dream about questions. We're going to come back after break and work with the big question as a way of stating what the issue we're trying to solve is. What I will share is when you focus in this way on the questions, the better questions will lead to better answers.